From the day the war between Iran, the United States, and Israel began, no one imagined the global consequences it could have.
Exactly. And nobody thought the Strait of Hormuz would be shut down. It's arguably the most important artery of the world's energy trade.
Welcome to my channel, everyone. Today, we're diving into this critical event.
On February 28, 2026, the day the war started, the Strait of Hormuz was closed.
That closure disrupted about 20% of the world's oil and gas supply.
And of course, prices immediately began to rise, shaking global markets.
But the story wasn't just about oil and gas.
Exactly. Prices of many other things skyrocketed too.
Most importantly, chemical fertilizers that directly affect global food supplies.
And also chemicals used in plastics, petroleum products, and even microchips.
So today's global problem isn't only about gasoline or diesel, it's far broader.
You're right. Oil prices quickly doubled, jumping from $55 to nearly $100.
And with the ups and downs of the war, prices keep fluctuating.
But overall, they've settled around $100, putting heavy pressure on global markets.
Even though only 54 days have passed since this crisis began, many countries are paralyzed.
Especially in East Asia, gas stations simply don't have fuel to sell anymore.
Exactly. Factories have been forced to shut down an extra day each week.
And even a developed country like Australia is struggling. Despite being wealthy and sparsely populated, it faces severe fuel shortages.
On the other hand, we have the United States, which has a huge population.
But unlike Australia, the US doesn't suffer from a shortage of oil resources, so its situation is very different.
You should know that back in 2018, the United States overtook Russia as the world's largest oil producer.
And today, it's producing about 13.5 million barrels per day.
Their goal is to push production up to 20 million barrels daily.
That would surpass the combined output of Russia and Saudi Arabia.
With oil prices at $100, billions of dollars are flowing into the U.S. every single day.
And let's not forget Venezuela. Its oil is also under American control now.
You might say Venezuela is an independent country.
But in reality, it isn't anymore. Using 19th century language, Venezuela has become an American colony.
Officially, too. Since Donald Trump came to power, he openly stated that Venezuela's oil belongs to the U.S.
And he's made similar claims about Iran as well.
American oil companies are the ones profiting the most from this situation.
And right behind them are the arms manufacturers, making huge profits too.
In short, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is pushing the world into a new phase.
Exactly. An economic depression is already taking shape in many countries.
Economists are deeply worried.
They say if this continues, the world could face a recession worse than the Great Depression of 1930.
That would be the worst economic downturn in history.
Hopefully, it won't reach that point, because even the wealthiest nations would suffer severe consequences.
And here's the key point. The world's most critical fuel isn't just gasoline.
It's diesel, which the global economy depends on the most.
Gasoline is used for regular cars, and it's important.
But diesel is far more critical because trucks, ships, and especially agricultural machinery depend on it.
Exactly. Without diesel, global transportation would collapse.
And even worse, diesel shortages could trigger food scarcity and famine.
That means millions of people would be affected.
And tragically, many could even die from hunger.
You might think not all global trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz, so maybe it doesn't affect everyone.
But that's a mistake. Its impact spreads indirectly across the entire world.
For example, imagine Japan sells a shipload of machinery to Brazil.
That ship needs diesel to make the journey, and now diesel has become much more expensive.
Plus, the factory in Japan that produced those machines already consumed higher-priced fuel.
And on top of that, insurance costs for ships have risen too because the seas are less secure.
So the result is that these Japanese machines reaching Brazil end up costing 2 or 3 times more.
And that triggers chain reactions, making everything more expensive across the board.
When prices rise everywhere in a country, that's inflation.
And then workers' wages also need to go up, which isn't something every country can approve quickly.
Economists say, God help the people of the world.
Because the biggest problem with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz isn't just oil, gas, diesel, or gasoline.
The biggest problem isn't oil or gas.
You're right. The biggest problem is chemical fertilizer.
About 40% of the world's fertilizer passes through the Strait of Hormuz.
And now it's planting season. The world needs fertilizer to produce food for 8 billion people.
Experts warn that if this shortage isn't resolved, next year will be catastrophic.
More than 100 million people in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa could face severe hunger.
And mortality rates would rise dramatically.
This shows the closure of the Strait of Hormuz isn't just an energy crisis, it's a massive humanitarian crisis.
But the situation is different for countries that have their own oil and gas resources.
Like the US, Canada, Russia, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, they don't face shortages.
The only impact for them is higher fuel and energy prices.
Unlike countries such as Vietnam, where gas stations run dry and factories are forced to shut down.
Right now, one of the world's biggest problems is liquefied gas.
Because about 40% of countries either don't have gas pipelines at all or only very limited ones.
Many countries don't have gas pipelines, so they rely on gas cylinders.
And most of that liquefied gas has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
Right now, huge lines have formed in those countries just to buy gas cylinders.
But the problem is there isn't enough liquefied gas to supply everyone.
The only relief is that in the northern hemisphere, it's spring and summer.
Which means at least we don't need much fuel for heating.
Another major problem is the destruction of oil and gas resources in the region.
Exactly. Many refineries and oil and gas wells have been attacked.
These attacks have had a direct impact on supply shortages and rising fuel prices.
In short, the biggest losers of this war are the countries most dependent on Gulf oil.
That includes Southeast Asia, Europe, and Africa.
These regions are suffering the hardest blows from the energy crisis.
So who's the biggest winner in this disaster?
Right now, it's the American and Russian oil companies.
Because both are producing as much oil as they want and selling it at the highest prices.
And customers are lining up to buy.
But American economists aren't optimistic.
They say it feels like a honeymoon phase in the US. Gasoline and diesel are expensive and people are fired up.
But this is only the beginning. Fuel prices will rise even more.
And eventually, it will affect the price of everything, leading to runaway inflation.
Russia is suffering less damage.
Because for the past 4 years, it has been under heavy sanctions and is used to austerity.
Exactly. This situation isn't new for them.
That experience has made them more resilient to the shocks of this crisis.
But it will take a long time for things to return to normal, and only if war doesn't flare up again.
You should know that before this war, Gulf countries had plans to boost their production.
So they could meet the world's growing demand and stabilize global markets. In reality, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Iran are facing tough challenges.
They're forced to use their resources just to restore production back to previous levels.
And the rest of their budgets must go toward rebuilding their defense capabilities.
Because nearly all of their defensive infrastructure has been destroyed and needs to be rebuilt.
This crisis has pushed consumers who are under severe pressure to look for alternatives.
Exactly. Many are turning toward other sources of energy.
Like solar and wind power.
And even nuclear energy is being reconsidered as a serious option.
Coal might make a stronger comeback.
That's true. Coal is still one of the world's most important fuels.
Some people think it's been abandoned.
But in reality, it still plays a major role in global energy.
We're even planning to make a separate video about coal.
Because it has its own world and plenty of stories to tell.